Welcome everyone to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about the Mighty Ducks Game Changers Season 1, Episode 1. The episode is called Game On. Game Off. Game On. I'm sorry, I even think about it until I read it out loud there, and all I can think about is Wayne's World now, when they're going back and forth on the road. But yes, welcome. Also in Minnesota, I think.
Is it?
Oh no, it's not, it's in Milwaukee.
Say that didn't sound right.
Aye, but it's near though. It's in the same area. Like those states are pretty much
It's
together.
an M. It's an MI, is what you're saying here.
No. They're all around that same kind of part of the country.
Sure.
They are. This is factual.
I'm not knocking your geography. I'm just knocking your word association skills.
This is not word association. The confusion was mixing up Wisconsin with Minnesota, which are both pretty close together.
Yes.
Because they're both the cold states.
Is that what we are reducing them to?
They are. They're the cold states.
I mean, yeah. It's hard to argue
They
about
are.
that. That and Alaska is like,
Yeah.
whatever.
You know, Fargo's right in there. You know, that's...
Yeah.
So, you know, this that whole area. Anyway, this is the Mighty Ducks TV show from Disney+. I will say I hate the title because it's an awkward... The Mighty Ducks Game... Why not Mighty Ducks The Game Changers? That would roll off the tongue much better. Just the being where it is awkward. It's really awkward.
Okay.
But, hey, we'll start spoiler-free because it is a first episode. This was a vote winner. This is why it's a few weeks later than it premiered. This is every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. Our patrons at $10 and up get to vote on one of the pilots from the previous month from the selection for us to cover. And the winner here, by a reasonable margin, was Mighty Ducks The Game Changers. See, I'm saying it my way, just naturally, without even thinking about it now. Yes, so this is obviously a follow-up, a sequel, legacy, reboot series, if you will, which Disney Plus are almost exclusively doing business with these days. But this is a sequel to the Mighty Ducks trilogy from the 90s, which I did grow up watching. I did see those movies a lot as a kid, so I do have some familiarity with the premise and what it's trying to harken back to. Did you see these movies growing up? Were these
I watched the first one growing up. Unsurprisingly, I've never cared for sports movies. I still don't, for the most part. So I didn't really have any strong attachment to them.
I never cared about sports, but you know there were some sports movies that worked for me. And as a kid, I was always quite into the Mighty Ducks. I wasn't sure what to think when they announced this revival series. It was kind of a weird, like, oh, I guess anything can come back now. And it'd be, if it was on its own, it'd be like, oh, that's kind of quirky and interesting that they're doing that. Obviously, it was announced with Sister Act 3 and High School Musical TV show and like 50 other things that were all so cynical.
I think as well, also more specifically, that isn't Disney, but we've just been having a Cobra Kai.
Yes.
As well, which is very similar to this in premise.
Similar in premise, at least from what I know, having not seen Cobra Kai, because I've not actually watched it, so I have no idea how close it is in terms of how it functions or its tone. I mean, the tone's probably different because it's different, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't know exactly how... But there is, yes, when you say it out loud in a sentence, having not seen Cobra Kai, there's a kind of a familiarity to it. The premise then is that the Mighty Ducks are still a team in Minnesota, still a kids team, and our main character of Evan, our young kid, he is thrown off the team at the start of the new season. They're just going up to the next league, so obviously there's a Mighty Ducks for the 9s to 11s, which he was in, but now he's in the 12s to 14, so it's kind of a bit more physical, a bit more full contact and all that, and he's not quite cutting it. He's just not good enough according to the coach, so he gets cut. And his mother, played by Lauren Graham, Alex, she decides to, let's just make a new team. Let's just, there's rules. They have to get X number of players and a coach by X date to qualify. But there's no other rules than that. Anyone can kind of form a team and join up. So they go looking for kids and a coach and a place to practice. And that's kind of what this first episode mostly is. But presumably the story of the season will be them, if not winning the season, when everyone looks at them like a bunch of losers, at the very least they'll do the Rocky thing where they're going to make it to the finals and make whoever does win, presumably the Ducks, fight for it and sort of prove that they're not just like throwaways.
It'll be like, oh, they respect us after all now at the end. I'm assuming. Because
I assume.
I'm assuming they're going to want more than one season out of this.
Yeah, you have to. You win
I
the
don't
end of
think
season
they win
2.
in this.
Yeah. Which is again is following Rocky almost to a T, but
It kind of is, yeah.
but whatever.
It works for a reason, though, doesn't it?
It does work. So we do have Coach Bombay back, because that was one of the weird things about this, is that when I heard about this, I'm like, well, naturally you have Joshua Jackson, who was like the main kid in the first Mighty Ducks. You have him be the coach now, because now he's like 40. It's perfect. It practically writes itself, and they haven't done that. They did something else, which I thought, oh, they're bringing back Estevez, which has its own novelty just because he's not really been an actor for a long time. He was directing things, he was off camera, he's been so it's actually kind of oddly nice to see him again, just because he's been missing in general.
Yeah, I get that.
I never watched The Irishman, but I assume part of the appeal of that as well was that Joe Pesci was in a movie again, because he hadn't done anything in like 20 years. So it was like, oh, Joe Pesci's back.
I mean, I don't know what the appeal of that movie was.
You watched it, didn't you?
I did. I regret every second of it.
So yeah, and there's obviously other kids. Right away, they let you know it's 2021 because our second main kid, I'll call him the podcaster. He's like commenting on the game, and he's constantly podcasting. He tries to interview Alex after she has a bit of a scene at the ice rink and all the rest of it. And then we get into some other kids who are going to make up the team. So we'll leave it there. We'll get into more plot and spoilers and whatnot later. We'll give you a warning, but. I suppose I'll ask Connor the question, and clearly, and I think there is a conversation to be had about who exactly this is aimed at, but I will point out before I ask you this question that this isn't necessarily aimed at an adult male audience. So
I agree with that, yeah.
So what did you think of episode 1?
I think it's perfectly good. I mean, like I say, I don't think it's for me, in the same way that I'm not really the target audience, so that's fine that it's not for me. But I think it's well enough made. I think it's... there are definitely some things I would nitpick at. Some of the comic timing seems a bit off for me. But overall, it's it's following the expected beats of your sports movie, just drawn out over a season, essentially.
Which I think
viewed through that lens, it does a perfectly fine job.
Yeah, the added benefit of this being 10 episodes or whatever it is that you actually can spend time maybe focusing on the whole team. It's not just like they're not just boiled down to one caricaturistic thing and then that's it. I mean, they kind of are in this episode because they're introducing everyone at the start.
But I would like to think by the end of the season they're not. Yeah,
they'll have a bit more than that. I kind of loved this. I was not expecting to feel anything remotely strong towards this. There is one thing that I'm going to rant about because it's so stupid. It's to do with a video game, and I'm going to go on a tirade about it later on. Yeah. But there's a lot of this that it gets right, and I'm a little confused exactly who this is for, in the sense that, okay, I have nostalgia for this series, right? But I can't imagine that 25 to, I don't know, 45, whatever maybe that's too much, maybe 25 to 35, I don't know, whatever the range is for people who cared about this in the 90s, right? I can't imagine that we're the core. I'm sure they're happy for us to want it out of nostalgia, but
I will give it the benefit of the doubt in that I don't think it. One moment aside, I don't think it matters whether you've seen those original movies at all.
No, that's fair.
If you just if they took the name away and you took Estevez out and just didn't call it Mighty Ducks, just give it. It's a hockey sports.
Yeah,
show.
It could be anything. Yeah,
it could be anything. You just slap a different team logo on it. This still works perfectly fine as doing that exact thing.
It does. The only thing potentially of note that you would lose, at least right now from this first episode, and I definitely appreciated this, is the little hints of the theme that was in the score. There was the music was kind of fluttering in, and I can't deny that in that first 10 seconds when you see the logo on the ice rink and you just hear the little brass come in, and I'm like, oh, I felt something. I felt a tingling.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
but I think it's a credit to the episode here that it never feels reliant on those moments. It never feels reliant on, hey, look, you recognize this. It completely stands on its own.
Not at all. And the one big thing that's back, which is Bombay, other than, of course, the name of the team, but that sort of moved on and it's just the name of a team. That's all it is, right?
Yeah.
But Bombay, he actively is so against hockey and everything from the Mighty Ducks movies. And I think it plays it in a really fine way, where it's like this fine line where he's kind of being a dick, but he never actually crosses over into being a dick. It's like
He's crotchety old man territory.
He really doesn't give a shit about any of this crap. He makes it very clear he doesn't give a shit, but he's still a decent enough human being when he's prodded into.
He's agnostic. He's open to giving a shit once again.
I thought they played him quite well, and I think there's a moment where you first see him. It was in the trailer as well, where he almost like it's just the mist of the ice, but it's just like he has almost like an entrance.
The spotlight behind him, and he's on the Zamboni, and that's the one moment where it's like, oh, look who it is, because they're like almost hiding his face at first.
Yeah. He's bent over and he's like fixing something. And
that is the one moment I will say that I won't even say matters, whether you see the movies or not, but it's the one where it feels like, hey, look, recognize this.
Yeah, because even when it comes up that what his past is, like this could easily just be backstory because it explains everything it needs to explain. Like everything that you need to get from his past is brought up naturally, and it
functions to where his character is right now.
Yeah, and it makes the person who knows what's going on or recognizes him. It makes sense they recognize him because he has a history with the team and blah blah blah. Like it all clicks together. There's nothing about it that feels like contrived overly, because I was thinking about it actually as like, again, an interesting choice they made here was to have the Ducks kind of become the villains, and that's the thing that makes you think of Cobra Kai. But I was thinking, you could very easily just have it that the Ducks like disbanded for whatever reason years ago, because it's been a long time, and you could have it be the same story of, okay, we're going to form a new team for the Misfit Kids, and we're going to take back that brand, and we're going to start the Ducks again. You could have easily have done that and played into, so our main characters were the Mighty Ducks, right? And you could sort of have them do that. And I think the one reason, and the one good reason that I think they didn't do that, is that it would actually be a little bit more on the nose to have Bombay back. I think it being another team, and Bombay's connection being with the rival team, is a bit more interesting and less on the nose. I mean, I suppose you'd change it so that maybe they actively seek out Bombay because he was the originator coach of what became of the Ducks and blah blah blah. But
yeah,
I was thinking about it. I was like, why do it this way instead of just having them be the Ducks? And I thought, well, this, at least in this sense, yeah, there's a little bit of like how she bumps into the ice rink and there's Bombay. There's a little bit of like miraculous finding him and whatever, but. Like the fact that she doesn't know who he is, she doesn't understand his history, it doesn't come out till later, the fact that his history is with the other team and it's with, it all just kind of feels a bit less forced
organic
than I thought it was going to be. I was expecting contrivance, I was expecting a lot of this stuff. And the other thing, to its credit, is that it does a good job of, like, I don't know, it was like, what, 8 kids or something on the team in total by the end? I can't remember the exact number. But
6, I think.
Was it 6? But by the time we get to the end, I felt like, yeah, you know what? Other than one, I feel like all of them had a good introductory scene, at least where I haven't. I remember who they are based on just who they were in their introduction.
All of them at least had moments. Even the one who I think I know who you're saying didn't have a scene had a moment earlier on. Where it was clear they were going to be part of this.
Sure, yeah. So, and honestly, it's pretty funny in places. Not all the humor lands, but I get surprised about halfway through or so when a joke legitimately made me laugh out loud, and I wasn't expecting to think it was that funny.
I'd be interested to see what that was.
And it was kind of amusing before the payoff, but once the payoff hit, I wasn't expecting it to be as quick as it was, and it made me laugh hysterically. So we'll get into that in just a second. But yeah, to sum, honestly, this was pretty good.
I mean, let's say I'm not the audience because I don't care for sports movies in general, right? They're not my thing. But I can see, if you are a fan of them, you'll probably enjoy this.
Part of it is as well, I think. Not that I've tried watching a bunch of kid-focused stuff in the last, 2 decades, but I do feel like the way kids were in 90s movies isn't exactly how they've been in media since, right? There's been a difference. And watching this, it's not that obviously there's like one's a podcast and there's references to things, but there's something about it that surprised me as I was watching it that I wasn't expecting to actively not hate the kids. Like I went in sort of expecting to be annoyed, and they had little moments here or there, but for the most part I was like, you know what, this is doing a decent enough job. Like if I was like 10 right now, 12 maybe, I would be loving this shit. Like I kind of loved it anyway, but I would definitely be loving it at 10 or 12.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
You know, and I think part of it's nostalgia, but I actually think it does a pretty good job at just being good at what it is.
Yeah, I think obviously you're bringing some nostalgia to it.
Yeah.
That's inevitable. But I do think out of almost all of the reboot, sequel things that we've seen discussed over the last 5 years, which, let's be honest, is quite a lot of things.
Wait, are you about to say this is better than Clarice? Because I think I agree, but just it's a bold statement.
I would say, I mean, it is, one, but also more importantly, it stands on its own way better than Clarice does. Like, yes. Clarice, that entire thing, it's like going, hey, look, remember this thing? And this isn't doing that. At no point, this is just, no, we are kind of taking the same ideas, to twisting it a little bit, using some of the familiar elements, like, team names, characters here or there. But for the most part, you can jump, you could show this to a kid who's not seen those movies, and
absolutely,
it would absolutely just function.
And I think the important thing is that this is more interested in making me feel like I'm watching a Mighty Ducks piece of entertainment than it is about reminding me that it's a sequel to Mighty Ducks. And I know that sounds like a weird distinction, but when you watch Clarice, every single plot thread has to harken back to her trauma of what she went through in Silence of the Lambs and blah blah. And that's just one example. In this, though, like we've been saying, this episode at least has a simple goal. It's okay, we're setting up that they need to set up their own team. And the episode is largely going to be on what the kids' side, finding the players, and kind of the oddball humour that will come from that, finding the other misfits, and from the mum going to try and find an ice rink and a coach, and what that choice is going to be. And it just does that. It just plays it, and it has some fun with it. It gives us some likeable characters, and and it's not like, because ultimately there's a kind of a big speech later on to kind of convince some people to join the team. And I don't even think that big speech is that great, but everything else was done so well in the episode, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. You know what? This is the beat in the story. This works. Sure.
You let it have a pass because it's doing everything else right.
Yeah, the fundamentals are there. And it's not like it's harkening back to the movies, but it's not relying on it. And instead it's saying, no, this is the way the movies made people feel, so we're going to try and recreate that feeling. And it's that, I think that's kind of more important. It's kind of why I love Stranger Things so much. People call it a nostalgia fest, but Stranger Things is about reminding me why I love those things. It's not about relying on them to tell its story. And I think that's an important distinction. Not that this is Stranger Things, because I don't think it is, but it's still an example.
I get where you're coming from, though. It's not reliant on Mighty Ducks specifically. It's just reliant on that feeling.
Yeah, and I know some of the original cast are showing up later in the season for an episode or whatever, and I'm sure like that episode will play probably much better if you give a shit about it. But then again, Bombay's inclusion in this worked perfectly well. I have
a lot more faith in it after this.
Yeah, so I kind of recommend it. I don't necessarily know if it bears review to review. I know that I think Connor would want to anyway, but like, I think I'm going to watch the rest of it, which is more than I thought I was going to say when I came out of that.
Yeah, so, I did not expect that. Again, and it's not like I came into this expecting it to be terrible. I wasn't at that level, but I think we've grown cynical with seeing names slapped on things, right? And I'm expecting it's another one. It's another Clarice. It's another MacGyver. You take your pick.
MacGyver's cancelled, by the way. It's ending. It's cancelled.
Oh, really?
You weren't there that day for news. That was a Matt day, I think. But
oh man,
it's ending.
Just maybe I should drink to its demise.
I thought I'd throw that in there.
But my point is, we've seen a lot of these random properties come back over the years, and 9 times out of 10 they're, if not outright terrible, just meaningless fluff reliant on just only existing because it has a name behind it.
Yeah.
Whereas this, let's say, you could take the branding out of it entirely, change literally 1 or 2 moments in the entire episode, and I mean moments, and everything stands on its own as just no, this is a perfectly solid introduction to your team.
And I think that moment we talked about with Bombay's introduction, the only real change to it is how it's filmed. It's not it's not really in the content of the scene. It's more just how it treats it from a cinematic point of view.
And the music swells up a little bit. It's like you're like, oh, this is a moment. And you take that out, and this could be a completely original property. Yeah,
it totally could be. So I'll say spoilers then, so we can talk about some of the stuff that was cool. Actually, I mean, okay, I will say that the first thing we talk about is only mild spoilery, but after this first point, it'll be full spoilers. And the reason why I mail, because I want people to hear this complaint. So at one point in the middle of this game, our main kid, and he's recruited the podcast kid, because the podcast kid's a little bit chubby, and he loves watching ice hockey, but he never thought he'd get to play it because he's just not the right build for it, right?
As he says, he has a podcast body.
Yes. Amen, my brother. So they're sort of teamed up, and they're looking for other players, and they're playing, NHL Live or 2K or whoever makes NHL games.
EA make it.
So it's live then.
I think it's just NHL and then the year.
Okay. Well, they're playing the hockey game, right? As you would, right? And out of nowhere, they say, "Hey, this guy's great. He's got like 10,000 hours in the game. This goalie doesn't let anything in." And I'm like, okay. Somehow they're going to find this kid, and he's going to be the goalie, right? Whatever, because and it's not ridiculous to suggest, but the idea that he's got really good reflexes that could actually translate to actually being a goalie, right? It's not. Mm-hmm. It's not. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying it's rock solid logic, but for the type of show,
there's a hand-eye coordination link. At least.
But for some reason, when they click on his profile on the Xbox, it tells them who he is and his real name, and he literally just looks him up on his phone, and then they go to his house, and I'm like, wait, what?
You can set your profile to do that.
Why would you do that?
I don't know, but you can just put all that information in and just have it public.
I've not played it on Xbox in like a decade, so this is wowing me. What?
It's been like that for years. Like in terms of just your information, you can set it to like friends only, or only people who request access, or you can just have it public and anyone can see whatever you put on it.
The fact that these two 12-year-olds are able to find his home address is exactly why you shouldn't do this. I mean, obviously, they're not doing anything dangerous, but
it's terrible internet security.
Yes, if they can do this and find them, that's rang as bullshit to me. Apparently, it's maybe not as bullshit as I thought.
The reality is no one actually puts all this information and leaves it on public, but in theory, yeah, you could. Okay, well, in that case, the kid's an idiot. All right, okay. Full spoilers there. Complete full spoilers there. So they've had a day at school, I think, try to find someone or at this point, and everyone's just like told them to piss off in no uncertain terms. And they're practicing out in the street, and like a moving van pulls up. And out walks, I can only describe this as like Canadian Leon S. Kennedy gets off the truck. He's got the curtains, the blonde curtains of the hair, and it's in slow motion, and they're watching, and he's got like blue hockey gear on and Leafs.
Sorry, Maple Leafs, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's got like a hockey bag. They notice the bag that he's got in front of him that's kind of open. These skates, they're like like really expensive brand skate.
Yeah, they're like
skates.
It's like, oh, nice skates. He's like, oh, they give it from point A to B, and he's like, Tuntus Smith's like, dude, they're like $900 skates.
And this is treated like like a love interest almost. This
it's
moment.
It's not dissimilar to the way it plays the Estevez reveal.
Yeah, and it plays it like they've found the love of their life, and like, oh my god, if we get him, like our team is set, right? And this was kind of amusing because I just, as soon as I saw the Maple Leaf, I started laughing because, oh my god, a Canadian's moved. We can nab a Canadian. We'll be the best, right? That was really funny to me already. But the payoff to this, which is when he shows up to the practice, and it's only them two there waiting for him, and he's got matching blue gear on all up and down. He's got the full set. He's got and it kind of clicked to me that the joke here might be that he's not actually that good, right? And that was going to be amusing.
Were you expecting it to be this bad, though?
I wasn't expecting him to immediately start to fall down as soon as he stepped on the ice rink, and I started laughing. And I think the reaction of the main kid was what really sold it for me, because instead of because after a moment of just being in shock, he just sort of throws down his glove and says, "All right, that's it, I'm done. Even my Canadian savior, I'm done. This is not working. I can't do this." And it really made me laugh because it was almost too obvious a joke to make, but the way he just couldn't even stand up straight as soon as he it just really made me laugh. And the funny thing is I know this type of kid. Hell, I was even kind of like this in some ways, where if I got into something before I even learned how to do something, I'd insist on getting all the bits. I'd be like, no, I want to have the full set of things, and then I'd be like, oh, I'm not actually that good at this. Oh well. Like that, I can sympathize with this mentality.
Wait, give us an example of something you did that with.
Oh, I don't have an example.
Come on, embarrass yourself.
I don't have one. It's been a long time.
You have a memory.
No, I'm not doing it. But it rang true to me. But it was really funny. So there you go. That obviously his entrance stuck out because of that. Obviously,
what we learned today is Pete was the shitty little Canadian.
How dare you? So yes, but I really have to emphasize he's got the Leon S. Kennedy hair.
He does.
And being dressed in blue doesn't help because that's also the color of the RPD uniform. But I mean, it's
going down a rabbit hole here.
Anyway,
wind it back a bit.
Right. So yeah. So the goalie, they go to him, and he's the sort of cliche. He just sits in the basement and plays video games. But when they start throwing shit at him, it's almost if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball kind of moment where he just starts throwing things at him, and he just starts catching everything. It's just like, look at those reflexes.
Yeah, most of the scene I was just like, The one bit I liked was
the hammer.
The hammer, yeah. And it's just like, no, too far. Yeah, and then they just carry on throwing other stuff anyway. like I expected that to just too far, and that was the end of it. But then they just carry on with everything else.
Yeah. And there's the one kid who, and I appreciate the simplicity of this because earlier on he tries to ask this kid who skateboards down the hallway in school if he wants to be in the hockey. He's like, it's too much rules. But someone dared me to ram into the vending machine, and if someone dares you to do something, you got to do it. And I almost immediately thought, well, just dare me to be on your hockey team. I thought he was going
to do it there and then.
Yeah. And I did like that it came back at the end when he's making his big speech and he's convincing everyone. He just sees him in the crowd and goes, "You, I dare you." I was like, oh, finally, he's worked out the logic.
Yeah.
You've beat me his own game.
It is very much 12-year-old logic, but hey, gotta play by the rules.
It worked. There's the one girl who's his best friend who's still in the Ducks, who's got the rich mum, who isn't on the team yet. Clearly, she's either going to transfer at some point, or maybe that'll be a season 2 thing, and she'll be like the ally that's on the team for the whole season.
Yeah, probably.
For some drama, whatever it may be. The one who doesn't get much time is the sort of the popular girl who, just when with Evan making his big speech in the cafeteria, she just kind of says, "You know what? I get what you're saying about being a misfit. I mean, I'm sick of trying to live up to these people." But then she says, "And that's okay, right?" It's like her, her mean girl leader. It's like, yeah, that's okay. Bye.
There was a moment with her earlier in the episode when I think it's when they're in the cafeteria asking for people the first time around. And she goes to stand up at one point to go over to him and then doesn't. Yeah. So I kind of like, okay, that's coming later in the episode, and it's not as much of a moment as anyone else had, admittedly, but there was something there. I
mean, I appreciated the moment just in the idea of one of the mean girls just going, you know what, yeah, F this, I kind of want to do this. It was kind of enough. And then because the main mean girl makes fun of him and throws something, and then the goalie who was catching after just grabs it in midair. I actually thought that was a neat moment, but a nice callback to earlier on. It kind of felt. It did a good job of building them up just enough so that they all had the little payoffs.
They had a thing,
yeah, at the end. And then the other girl who was the Magic the Gathering playing sort of nerdy one
has an inner rage that she needs an outlet for.
Yeah, I mean the joke has to be that she's the roughest one on the.
Oh, definitely, because the expectation is the skateboard kid, because that's what they what they game for is like, hey, you're willing to just slam into things, no hesitation, you'll be perfect. But he'll obviously be nowhere near as good as her.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they'll do like a Bash brother sister thing, because the Mighty Ducks had the Bash brothers. So it's possible they'll go down that path. But yeah, all that, and any of the Bombay stuff, like I think I appreciated it, because he's kind of standoff. It's not until she says, "Oh, there's like a grant for like youth hockey stuff that's not being used that I have applied for, and it'll like pay because he's saying that the ice rink's barely surviving, and because he says I hate hockey, he's got a sign up saying I hate hockey. He says he also hates kids, but he couldn't get a sign for that.
Sign. Yeah. It surprises me.
But as soon as he saw the money that he could get, he's like, you know what, I'll wiggle on the no hockey thing. That's fine. But what I liked is later on, so he ends up making a speech where he kind of tells off Alex, the mum, for coddling him too much. Because I mean, this whole thing starts because she has a fighting match, a row with the coach at the start after he gets kicked off the team, and it goes viral and everyone's making fun of him. So the whole kind of thing of the episode is that she has to kind of let him fight his own fights a little bit, and Bombay kind of yells at her for it and tells her this, and then says to him, look, she's doing everything wrong, but you actually have to, don't give her a hard time. Like he gives them both a pep talk, right? And this is what leads to him making his big speech at school, which is successful. And then when she comes back the next night and they're having their practice with everyone or whatever, she thanks Bombay, and he's sitting eating cake. This is a running thing where there's like kids' birthday parties, they always leave cake.
They always order too much.
Yeah,
they don't take it with. Like, this is something strange to me. In my experience, it's always just taken with them.
Yeah, maybe he's got a policy so he can eat the leftover cake.
Yeah. Like it in my experience, it'll get sliced up, it gets wrapped up, and everyone gets to take a slice home with them.
Yeah, that's too communist for these Americans.
That's how it works over here. Let me tell you.
But he's eating his cake again. No, he's not. He's eating pizza this scene. There's definitely two cake scenes, but it's pizza in this scene.
There's two cake scenes and a pizza scene in the middle.
He's always eating. I appreciate that in a TV character. But he's eating pizza, and she comes in. She tries to thank him genuinely, and he kind of just sort of shrugs and goes, "Oh, that's nice. Did you bring the check?" And like he immediately just wants to see the check, and he's looking at it, he's like, "Oh." I kind of liked how they played it, where he did give the inspirational speech, but he still very much cared more about being paid after. It's
the curmudgeonly old bugger who's he's got the heart in there, but it'll take a while to come out. It's a pretty standard trope, but nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and she decides she's going to be the coach because there's no one else. Because obviously you're thinking he's going to somehow end up agreeing to be the coach. This won't make sense, but he doesn't. Instead, it looks like he'll be more the advisor to her as the season goes on, because she decides to be coach even though she's never played hockey, and the last time she was on an ice rink was in 8th grade. Which there's kind of a cute scene where he turns on the song she said she'd done a routine to, and she ice skates again. Yeah. But the big thing is, of course, is the big sort of the start of the league ceremony where all the teams are introduced, and then they come hobbling on, and they're all sort of proud of themselves that they look like a bunch of misfits on the ice rink until they see a video play of why they've got a montage of what full contact is in ice hockey for this event. I'm not sure, but the fact that it's the main kid who looks up at it and goes, "Oh crap."
Yeah, it's not one of the others. It's the kid who was theoretically prepared for it. Yeah,
because you expect some of the others to not be enthused by this, but the fact that it's the main kid who theoretically should be the one who knew this was coming. He's the one who's been on the hockey team for years and cares about ice hockey.
Yeah, and as far as he knew, up until like 2 days ago, was going to be going up into this in the Ducks anyway.
Yeah. So, yes.
I will say,
pretty much it.
We didn't even mention my favourite character.
Oh,
which is Winnie, the hot chocolate bar girl.
Really? She left that much of an impression on you?
Oh, the moment where Alex, she's there, jabbering, because she doesn't shut up. Like the whole left, that's kind of her thing, right? She just doesn't shut up.
And this is in the ice rink. This woman's an employee who does like the little hot chocolate bar in the ice rink.
Yeah. And there's a point where she just goes over and turns on the machine to start making a drink just to drown her out. And I'm like, I feel you. I was like, just that one moment, I was like, that got me.
She was fine. I mean, she didn't leave an impression on me, but
just doing that, just leave her oblivious, talking away, just drone around and have the moment of peace. I felt that.
Yeah. Honestly, the most unrealistic thing about the whole episode might be when Alex is doing a little routine and like, skating in the ice and kind of like twirling around and stuff. Is that I think the kids start noticing this because they're nearby and they all start watching
and don't start laughing.
Oh, I wouldn't even necessarily the other kids. I buy that the other kids will just be like, oh, I guess that's okay. But the fact that Evan kind of cheers out, yeah, way to go, Mom. I'm like, no. You would be embarrassed as shit right now if you're 12 and you're with your friends of the same age and you catch your mother on ice rink, twirling around,
doing anything. You're doing anything. It's like no, can't be having this.
Yes, it's mortifying. So that is the most unrealistic about the episode, but it's a wholesome, tone show. So I get why they're not going deeper into the.
It's a little bit weird because it has no problem showing his clear embarrassment with her earlier in the episode, especially with like all the stuff with the video of the shouting row. It's just like it wouldn't have felt out of tone for him to be embarrassed here.
Yeah, just play it like it's not a serious thing. It's just he's a little embarrassed, but the rest of them are all kind of like cheering her on, or whether it's completely genuine or a little bit tongue in cheek, because it's like, hey, Evan, there's your mom. She's doing twirls and shit or something. I don't know. But yeah, surprisingly fun. Wholesome, kid-friendly entertainment. I guess. I mean, I suppose Disney are supposed to be good at that, but
I mean, it hits the brief, doesn't it?
This is what it's supposed to do. But so I mean, we'll see. Hey, way better than Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'll throw it out there. Way better than Falcon and Winter Soldier.
I have not watched a single second of that. I have seen the one meme from this week, and that's it. I'm going to go on a limb and say I enjoy this more than I would that show.
I am. There's some interesting stuff introduced in that show, and there was one interesting thing right at the end of the episode this past week, which is probably where the meme came from. But
yeah, it is.
Most of it, it's a slog.
I have never felt like I made the right decision more than seeing your reaction to it every week on Twitter.
I just stopped talking about it, reviewing it, because I just had nothing to say. I was like, I'm not, and also I wasn't paying as much attention as I should have been because I just couldn't. It was just too dull.
Yeah, you're still watching it.
There's only 2 left now. I mean, because I'm going to keep watching other MCU stuff. I may as well be up to date and things.
Yeah.
It's not like it's
completionist bastard.
It's not like it's forcing me to go through a 22 episode season. Like, you know what? It's fine. I'll get through the next 2 episodes. I'll call it a day, and hopefully good stuff later. It's a shame because I actually like some of the characters that are on it, but that is what it is. Anyway, Mighty Ducks Game Changers, surprisingly pretty good. The first 3 episodes are all out because it's weekly. So the next couple are there. So I might check them out in the very near future. And like I say, I won't review episode to episode. I don't think there's a lot to talk about in this first one because we're talking about how it's doing it, how it's achieving it, its tone, the fact that it's surprisingly good, all those things. Episode to episode, I don't think there'll be that much to talk about in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, so I recommend try if you have nostalgia, or if you are in the age range for this, or you have a kid more likely in the age range for this, if you're watching us, then something
very
to
realistic. Yeah.
Something. This is not something you're going to be mad watching with your kid, especially if you have nostalgia. And I guess that's maybe the hope that they have, is that people who have nostalgia for Mighty Ducks maybe have younger kids of their own now who they can watch this with, and it doubles up as an excuse to watch something they're not supposed to be watching in their age range. But
yeah, I think at the end of the day, though, if you enjoy light-hearted sports movies,
yes,
of that, it doesn't have to be Mighty Ducks specifically, but anything of that kind of style, you'll probably enjoy this quite a lot because it definitely nails that feeling. So don't be ashamed. Go and enjoy it.
Yeah, after 1 episode, I recommend it. So there you go, Mighty Ducks Game Changers. Let us know what you thought of the first episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuffs. Super important to do that on YouTube. You can, of course, also support us financially over at patreon.com, which is where this was voted for. So you can support us over there for as little as $1 per month and keep all the content coming. Otherwise, catch us on Twitter at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?